This is Professional Life Crisis. I'm your host, Amanda. And by now, I'm a damn near professional at having a life crisis. This podcast is here to help you get through those messy, uncertain times riddled with ramen noodles and self-doubt. If you're an ambitious, curious young professional trying to pave your way in the world, it's not as scary as I once thought it was. But I really wish I'd had someone to tell me that. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Professional Life Crisis. Wherever you are on your personal and professional journey, I'm so happy to have you. Today's episode is such a fun, funny, yet incredibly genuine chat with a dear friend of mine. If you're somewhere on the struggle spectrum between, do I need a new job, to move to a different city, or all of the above, this episode is for you. And if you've ever gone through a tough personal time and worried about how to prioritize your mental health while also juggling a very demanding workplace, Katherine is so vulnerable and shares how she was able to work with her company to take an unprecedented leave of absence, to prioritize her mental health, and to come back to work better than she'd felt in years. I can't wait for you to come along for our chat. Let's get into it. So I have been on the journey of Kat's life crises many times.
Yeah, and you've been along for the ride. Yeah.
And you have been on mine.
Yeah.
So this is not a new topic.
One of us always riding back seat in the other's car.
Yeah. In the getaway car, we were driving. And this is also the shirt that I wore to the Taylor Swift concert.
Oh,
I have
like, wow, it's really sparkly
since then, but I was like, it's a vibe.
So it is a vibe. Yeah.
So, but I feel like we should, for historian's sake, we should do a little like chronological reenactment of what went down. Nice. Because I know that you've had crises about work and like that was one whole separate thing. Mm-hmm. And then you had, I would say like 1.5 to 2 crises about moving.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right.
For sure.
Let's take it back. So tell me about the first one. This was like work stuff, right?
Work stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's many crises.
Right, there's always a crisis.
Yeah,
but,
always.
Like, specifically the big ones.
The big one. Yeah. I think like the big one was, it was 2021. Mm-hmm. I'm setting the stage.
Isn't it 2021 right now?
Like, you said that and I was like, oh. Like, is it?
I'm sorry. Like, I know it's not 2020 anymore.
Right.
Like, that's obvious. And like,
right.
Don't say that word.
Right.
But like, it's definitely not about to be 2024. Honestly, by the time this episode goes live, it will be 2024.
Yeah.
Like,
which
no,
is
sorry.
Like, but also, can I just say, thank God we're heading into another even year because I just don't do well in odds.
Oh, okay. All right. So 2021, no good.
No good.
All right.
No dice.
What happens?
Bad. Yeah. So, I'll back up into my professional life. Exited college. Entered.
Odd year. 17.
Bad. Yeah. 2018. Great year.
Okay.
Like,
coming up.
Fun. Like, was having fun in a romantic partnership. I just entered the work field, after college. I, was like starting that professional career as like a young lady in New York City and
like earning some money. Like,
you're like, oh,
doing stuff.
Like this is a lot more than getting paid $6 an hour at a froyo place. So you're like, this is fun. Like I'm an adult now. Like, yeah,
it's still like a little shiny.
Yeah. Where you think like $40,000, you're like Richie McRichster over here, but then you're like, oh, actually, I can't afford anything. But
that New York City lifestyle goes real quick.
Oh yeah. So that's when I started my career. Around 2018, I was originally in the event planning industry. I was an assistant wedding planner. I loved it. However, the emotional toll of that job was just a lot to handle.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. So I did that for about a year. And that was my like kickstart job out of my career because when I was in college and I got a marketing degree and art degree, right? So I have a visual arts degree and a marketing degree from college. I still didn't know what job to search and where to look for an advertising position. Like, I had no idea. Like, what job title should I be looking for?
They don't teach you shit about that.
No, they don't teach you anything.
They don't teach you in high school about doing your taxes or, like, how to manage your money.
Right.
In college, they don't actually teach you what you can do with this stupid degree.
Right. Like, and people our age now, like, just don't even know what a 401k is. I'm like, bro, get on it.
Come on, we gotta...
Yeah. Like,
we gotta be having
right,
one.
now you gotta be a little accountable for yourself. But, like,
2017, it was a pass.
Yeah.
Nah, you gotta have one of those.
Yeah, exactly.
For a long time, that was, like, my dating criteria. I don't know if you were present at Emily's birthday party a couple years ago, but I was single at the time, and this guy was, like, trying to chat with me, and he had short king energy, for sure.
Nice.
Like, he was probably, like, 5'6".
Nice.
Fine, I'm 5'3". But I remember, like, he got drunk, and all he could talk about was, like, that he was short. He was like, oh, like, do you not like me because I'm short? I was like, no, it's because you don't have a 401k. Bye.
That's it. Yeah, bye. Immediately disqualified from the pool.
Sorry. I was like, 5'6" would have been fine if you started your 401k 3 years ago.
Right.
Thanks, though.
Yeah. So now you're short on retirement savings, so that's really where you're short now, buddy. Yeah, not your height. It's that
True.
good retirement.
Right. So they don't teach you shit.
They don't teach you anything. Yeah. So that's where I kind of landed in the planning business, because I was like, I don't know what to do. And, like, I've always loved planning parties. Like, I love planning events. Was always, like, a leader. So I'm like, oh, well, I'd be good at this. And it was fun. Loved it. Just emotionally taxing. So I'm like, okay, I think I need to pivot to something else. Mm-hmm. And that pivot was to my current career, and actually a career that I had aspired to be in since I was in, like, the 5th grade. Just the advertising realm, advertising industry, working in digital media. So I found my way into a digital media agency, which we expand upon in another podcast.
Yeah.
So go take a listen.
Hear all about it. Yep. In the What the Fuck is Digital Media episode.
Yeah, it's a good one. And I started my career there. And I had known, like, okay, your stereotypical advertising career, especially in New York City, right, is really work hard, play hard. Mm-hmm. You're putting in a lot of hours, a lot of stressful projects, but also
client demands up the wazoo.
Yes, right, because it's client services. So, but there was, like, a lot of fun aspects where, like, okay, like, maybe you're in the office till 11 o'clock, but, like, 5 other people are there, and then you order pizza and beers, and you're all just kind of, like, working through it together. That's not technically, like, the play hard part. It's like, no, like, everyone parties pretty hard in the advertising agency too. But, you know, it was like a go, and I really like that environment. However, coming out of college, being, you know, like, a young woman, now moved to New York City and entering this field, I was starting to become burnt out extremely quickly because I was really putting my heart and my soul into my job. And I don't think that anyone had ever told me that I should be doing anything other than that.
Yeah. Like, and that, like, you probably had no separation and, like, no personal boundaries from work at that age. Yeah. I didn't either. It's so hard.
Right.
I think part of it is, like, you don't feel like you've earned that yet. Yeah. And you just, like, have to be a yes man. Which, to some extent, like, it is a little bit of the initial, like, hazing.
Right.
Starting a career, right?
Yeah.
But you do have to learn to flex that muscle, and you got to learn quickly. Otherwise, like, you will keep being absorbed by your work, and people will take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, like, early career, but you don't have the boundaries yet because you haven't, like, sort of grown into yourself professionally.
Correct.
So burnout's happening faster than it probably should.
Really fast. And not even a professional only burnout, an emotional burnout. Because I also was saying, okay, to myself, you're putting in all these hours, you're putting in all this effort, and what are you getting back right now?
Yeah.
Like, you've been told your whole life, like, okay, work hard so you can earn XYZ. And I just didn't feel that, like, earn aspect, like, really coming through in, 1, my paycheck, 2, the value that I felt I was getting from the agency that I was at, where I didn't feel like they valued me at all. Even, like, a raise that I got was significant percentage-wise, but
in terms of dollar bills.
Right. It's like, it's unlivable. And it's like, how are you expecting someone to work for you for 12 hours a day and you're not paying them to even live in the same area code where your office is?
Right.
It just it doesn't make sense to me now. And, you know, even back then, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I know, which is working as hard as I can to try to produce the best outcome for my agency and for my client. And I was really, really running into burnout issues. Because then, right, that kind of overflows into having financial issues. Where you're like, I can't pay for anything. I can't even have fun on the weekends when I'm not supposed to be working. And I'm working my ass off during the week. And for what? So
what's the end game here?
Right. Like, what am I doing? No one here even seems to think that oh yeah, like Kat's a great, contributor to this team. Like she's really valuable to us and like we value her as like a human and a worker. And that just wasn't coming through. I was also working on a fairly difficult client in a very short-staffed team. And it was just, it was a lot of work to go around. And I, again, right, didn't have the education coming from mentors, even like family, peers, like society saying like, hey, like take a beat and like you'll get through it. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like everything doesn't have to get done today. But in my mind, I was like, well, I gotta like.
Well, it feels like it when you have clients up your ass who think that it has to get done today.
Right. And, then too, like I've grown a lot since. And so like this was happening in 2019 and really it hit really pretty hard in 2020, especially when the pandemic, hit New York City. That was a really difficult time, of course.
Yeah, we'll give 2020 the pass on the whole odd even year. Yeah. I would say that was probably all around, like all across the board, bad for everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
But
blanket bad.
Okay. Yeah. So pandemic really like rocks you.
Right. And it was just a really tough time. I was going through a breakup, which really tore me down. I was really like emotionally hit from there, obviously, too. And
yeah, you're like taking beatings from
every angle. Yeah. Right. So I can't afford anything. I really was like lost, right? I think a big thing like post-grad depression is really real. Mm-hmm. You're like in this cocoon your entire life in school, and then you're thrust into, the real world, and it's like, okay, you're not given any support systems. Whereas like,
there's not structure, there's not support. I think one of the hardest parts about graduating is that you had your like very set bubble, which had built-in friends, built-in mentors, professors, like a built-in thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And you had your activities, like you had your extracurricular things that you were involved in that like gave you happiness and a sense of like separation from classes and from your homework. Mm-hmm. And then in my real life, when I graduated, I felt like I didn't find those hobbies quick enough. Mm-hmm. And so I also was super depressed. I was like, all right, so I'm like working endlessly for this job that I did not like my job.
Right.
And so what for? Like extracurriculars were always the way that I separated myself and like enjoyed my time.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really important once I like finally found those. It definitely gave me a sense of separation and like balance in my life.
Right. And even like and purpose outside of work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you put all your marbles, all your purpose marbles into your job.
Ooh, the purpose marble.
The purpose marbles.
Purpose marble? I just wanted to call them purple marbles. Yeah. Because like that's what
purple
it sounds like it should
marbles.
be.
Yeah.
The purpose marbles.
Purpose marbles.
That may or may not be purple. Yeah. Like if you put them all into like one jar, you're just not diversifying yourself enough.
Yes.
And then if something goes wrong at work, it feels like something's going wrong in your entire life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's defeating. Especially, you're trying to navigate yourself, your life now as a young adult, assuming you're likely, right, you meaning the viewers, the listeners, you're like in a city, right? Like you're trying to navigate like, okay, like now I'm like trying to move out of my parents' home. Like, do I live with friends? Can I afford to live alone? Like, what is that looking like? My expenses, you're paying for everything.
Right. You don't have a mental model for any of this yet.
No.
Like literally nothing.
No, you've never flexed those muscles ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So career is just like stressful. Pandemic hits. You go through a breakup. And where's your mind at?
My mind was in the gutter.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really difficult thing to grasp too, because there'd be instances where I was at work and I'm like, okay, like I know, like I'm an intelligent human, like I'm capable, okay, I've gotten this far in my career. And even, through school, right? Like I always got A's, like I had over 100 average in high school, which just sounds so nerdy. Like when I say that, but it's like, I've always been like a type A student.
Dweebs.
We were big time nerds. Like,
yep.
Yeah. And I just really feel like I wasn't performing at the level that I knew my intelligence and abilities were capable of.
Yes.
And so that was an added layer of frustration. But I think the biggest proponent that was really irritating to me was why. Like I had no concept of why am I not able to think like I can normally think? Why am I getting so upset over really tiny things in my life? Why am I not, able to even like communicate how I'm feeling and really like understand how to help myself? Like why is all of this happening? Not in like oh woe is me, but like really trying to find the true answer of
like your inner self.
Why am I feeling like this?
Yeah.
Right. And so that really was my professional life crisis.
Wow.
Is it my job? Is it the industry? Is it me? You know?
Yeah.
Is it where I'm living? Is it what I'm doing? Like
is it all of it?
Is it all of it? Yeah. Like, what is
Yeah.
the source of my, not even unhappiness, but like true depression? Like, truly, like, brain fog, inability to compute and be able to communicate, and
You're like not as sharp. You just can't like keep up at your normal pace. And it's amazing because I feel like now, you know, we're 28 now, and something that I admire about you so much is I feel like you do know yourself so well. Like, Kat's always the one in the friend group who knows how, like, seasonal depression affects her, how the gluten that she ate yesterday, like, threw off her gut, and now she has brain fog, and she can't get, you know. So you've developed such a strong understanding of your whys, and I could see not having that, like, strong inner self-centered feeling really throwing you off back then.
Yeah.
So you're going through this, like, mental spiral, basically, trying to figure out the whys.
Right.
And eventually, where did you get with that?
So I had been thinking, it's like, okay, something needs to change. And then, going into the question of what? Right. And so really the conclusion in that really difficult time in my life was my mental health needs to change. It's like, okay, how do I change that? Which is like, okay, you could go to therapy, you know, you could try to eat better, right? You go to a doctor, maybe you go on antidepressants, which like is nothing that wasn't familiar to me. I've been dealing with chronic mental health and this for, you know, a while now. So that wasn't unfamiliar, but I think it really goes back to that. Why now am I feeling so depressed where everything, my entire world feels like it's crashing into me? And really I remember it was a terrible breakdown where I told my boss, I'm like, I need to go out of pocket for 2 hours. I'm like, I have never been so low in my entire life. I'm like, do I need to call someone? Am I going to harm myself? Am I going to kill myself? You know, like really,
that's
really bad. Yeah. And he was like, is everything okay? I'm like, what am I going to say? Like,
no, but like,
right?
also you're my boss, so yes. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Yes.
So,
sure.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Let me just go sit by the pier and contemplate jumping over the railing. You
Right.
know, like,
But yeah,
but
fine,
no,
no
I'm
worries.
fine. Yeah. Yeah. I'll get that report to you by 6. Yeah. Don't you worry. I'll still come through.
No worries, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah. And also, like, shout out to my manager. He's a really wonderful human, who has gotten me through a lot. But I, you know, it was like, I was not going to be able, like, the conclusion I came to was, I am not going to be able to help myself if I keep my life exactly the way it is.
Yeah.
So, if I need to help my mental health, something else has to change.
Right.
And essentially, the decision was to go on a health leave for mental health crisis.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I was really taking a break I took 3 months off of work.
How did you broach that conversation with your manager? I like briefly remember this was a big stressful period. And like trying to figure out how to work this out with your team and your HR team. How did you even start this conversation though? Of like, hey, I'm actually not okay at all.
Right. So the morning after that, like 2 hours of like, hey, I need to like take a little break to myself, which was unusual, right? Because like I was a workhorse, like working 12 hours a day, like always putting in my, you know, the best effort I could. And I got on the phone with my manager the next morning and I was in tears. And I said, like, I was crying and I said, I'm not okay. And he was like, oh shit. Because, you know, that's not the person that I put forth in my career. And, you know, even now I'm a lot more comfortable and open, you know, talking about my mental health and like communicating like, yes, this feels good, I'm okay, or no, this does not feel good, I'm not okay, like something needs to change. But I think that was the first step that I took in my life to saying or admitting I'm not okay.
Yeah.
This has to change. So essentially, I asked them, I put it on my company, not specifically my manager, because like, you know, how much can you do when, you know, I'm 23, my manager's 25, I'm like, it's not like,
okay, all right, let's figure it out.
He's a
but
kid
he doesn't
too.
have a magic wand, right?
Yeah. So I said to him, I'm like, I just need to know my options. I'm like, I need to find out, do I stop working here? Do you need me to stop working here if I need to take an extended leave to fix my mental health? Like, are you able to give me, you know, can I do 2 weeks unpaid? Like, I needed to find out what are my options
For taking some time.
Yeah. So we were able to work through that. I was put on disability essentially through my agency, through my HR. And then I had 3 months of hard work to do. And by hard work, I mean seeing a therapist weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, where I just really had to prioritize my own health. Because I was like, I cannot be back in that hole ever again. And so I get like really emotional thinking of if anyone else is, depressed, suicidal, like wanting to self-harm, right? Like thinking how horrible of a time that was and how I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
It's like you're a different human when you're depressed. You're a different human when really you're having a crisis that is so chemically changing you. Where it's like your brain is not functioning at the capacity that it normally can because it can't. It's sick.
Yeah.
It literally, I try to describe that to people where they're like, oh, like mental health, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, you think of like, okay, some people get chronic sinus infections.
Right.
Some people have asthma. And some people have brain colds, we'll call it, right?
Yeah,
Depression.
Yeah. A brain cold.
A brain cold.
I like that.
Yeah. Like it's truly like an illness that alters your state of being, your mental awareness and capacity.
Yeah.
So that was my focus. And I could not even evaluate, like, okay, is it my career, my industry? Is it my current position in my job? Mm-hmm. Or is it the current company that I'm at? Until I had a clear brain. That was step one. Yeah. Step one is clearing that brain, getting myself healthy. And I did. I've been in therapy for, what year is it?
Well, it's about to be 2024, okay. So.
Yeah. It was like 3 years now.
Even though, yesterday was 2021. But.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So consistent therapy, which really like saved my life. Mm. I was able to, and also thankfully, like that's a very privileged thing to say. I will take a nod to. Like not everyone is able to talk to their company to say, hey, I need to go on disability or, whatever the option is. Not everyone is able to have a support system like I did of family and friends who are, there to support my journey towards wellness. Mm-hmm.
But I will say the answer's always going to be no if you don't ask.
Yes.
And it's not like you saw that your company had this policy completely outlined and it was like available to you on the company portal or anything.
Right.
You did have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
So, yes, while the option might not always exist, you're never going to know unless you ask and at least, try to come to an agreement.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's valuable to them and they want to be able to keep you, like it's in their best benefit to come up with a solution that's going to give you the time off that you need.
Yeah.
So that I would definitely just say, like, advocate for yourself.
Yes.
If nobody knows that you're struggling and if nobody already has a policy to help people, take some time off, like, you need to express that. And
right.
Maybe that can be accommodated.
Right. Which I think, too, is, like, I think wellness checks are just important for everyone. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe you're doing great.
I love getting your wellness checks. Literally just be like, wellness check. Like, literally that'll be the text.
Right. How's everyone doing?
And I'm like, 6 out of 10.
Yeah. It's good to have that frame of reference.
It is.
Because when you're like, oh, wait, actually, I'm only a 4 out of 10. And then it's like, okay, why?
Yeah, that's bad.
Right,
yeah.
right. Mm-hmm. But it's like good to check in with yourself because then how do you know? How do you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, advocating for yourself, checking in with yourself is really great. So back to the professional life crisis, right? We were able to sort out the mental health with which, very thankful. Very thankful I'm here. Very thankful I was able to like work through everything. Shout out to my therapist, Caroline. You're great. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
We all appreciate
it. Yeah. We all appreciate you. I saw her this last week and that was like really exciting. So I'm like, wow, look at this journey that we've been on together. And she's like, yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
She's like, and that's why you pay me the big bucks.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Which I will say, finding the right therapist, also really important. Mm-hmm. You have to have someone who you can relate to. And that's difficult too. It's the same thing like finding a life partner romantically. Yeah. Maybe not like
yeah, you have to be compatible.
Right, you have to be compatible. Yeah. So we were able to take care of our mental health journey, our wellness journey. And then I went back to work Q3 of 2021. And I felt like it was so wild where I had gone back to work and I was like, oh, my brain is working again.
Yes, like I can actually handle the tasks that are being assigned to me. Yes. I actually am thinking clearly.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it was a very stark difference where I was like, oh, this feels like how I've known my brain to work for me my entire life. Not the last 2 years of severe depression and anxiety and brain fog. And
wow.
It was like, I'm back, baby, you know?
Yeah. But honestly, that is so amazing. I'm glad you said that, because I think when so much is changing in your life, like when you first start your career out of college, there's just so many changes that you just went through. It's hard to know, like, what it is.
Yes.
And you question yourself a lot. You're like, oh, like, is this just my attitude now? Is this just how I show up? Like, is this just, like, work just sucks, or life just sucks? Like, is this just what being an adult is like?
Yeah.
And to some extent, the answer is yes to some of those things. But, like, no. Like, you should find out which of those things are just, like, adapting and changing to a new environment, and which things are actually, like, wrong.
Yeah.
Because for me, I also had this, like, this burnout after a couple of years in consulting. And when I was looking to get a new job, I was actually self-questioning whether I could handle, like, a high-stakes, like, fast-paced role, which is ridiculous. Like, that's the kind of person that I am.
Of course you can.
But when you
You
go
do
through
too.
those things... Thank you. But when you go through those things, you get to that level of self-questioning that's so bad that you're like, am I even that person anymore?
Yeah.
So the way you're talking about your mental health affecting your ability to show up at work and, like, be the person that you remembered yourself to be, oh my God, that's huge.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
It's super important.
Yeah.
So that would be my first piece of advice. If you are in a professional life crisis, my advice would be to make sure that you are within your window of tolerance for your mental health.
Ooh, yeah. I like
Right,
that.
because, like, that'll flux, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not one streamline. Like, you have a window of, like, okay, like,
what's acceptable.
right. And if you're not in that window, that is what you need to focus on first, in my opinion. That's what worked for me. I'd recommend that for anyone who is going through that right now, or maybe has gone through that in the past, like, kind of reevaluate, like, oh, like, maybe this decision was a result of poor mental health or brain fog, which, like, really is a subset of that. Like, it's a real thing. And then go from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
The window of tolerance.
Window of tolerance.
I
Shout out Caroline.
love that.
That's her shtick, yeah.
So you clear up your mental health.
Yep.
You
we're,
get back
we're in the
to work.
window. We're in the window.
That's great. We're back in the window.
Yeah.
And you're back at work and you're starting to come back to yourself and you're starting to do well again and you're starting to feel better.
Yeah.
So then what kind of happens in between work improving and your other self-exploration and thinking about moving?
Right. So moving came from a result of feeling great within my career. And
Because, like, one thing had finally settled.
right.
Okay.
So the one thing had settled where we're in the window of tolerance. And then the conversation came to, well, there's still some things that I don't really feel great about in my career. However, I'm feeling okay. So now let's move to the career part. Now let's evaluate that and see, do I still want to be in this career if I'm still objectively unhappy in my day-to-day, even though my mental health is as well.
Yeah.
But going to work was just a huge pain. So evaluating, do I want to stay in this industry? Do I want to change industries? Now that I have a healthy mind, a healthy heart, feeling really good. And so that was the next question I tackled.
Okay.
And essentially, that decision actually boiled down to money.
Yeah.
Because living in New York City, I was...
This is not a joke.
No, yeah. It really, like, came down to, okay, yeah, I'm a single girl living in New York City. I did not want to move back in with my parents. I wanted to ensure that I'm surrounded with a healthy social life, which I'm just a very social human. Like, I love being surrounded by friends, by people, positive energy, positive vibes.
And also, like, about living with your parents... I did it for 3.5 years, and it was, like, so fine for that time.
Yeah.
But once you stop living with your parents, you cannot go back.
Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah.
is so cagey, like, to
Right.
go back and feel like you're a kid again.
Right. You walk in that door and you're immediately outside of your window of tolerance.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
oh my God.
You're like,
Okay.
nope, gotta go. I spend, like, one day at my parents' house at a time, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, gotta go, bye, guys.
Yeah.
Love you.
Right. We gotta go back.
Yeah, yep.
So in, saying like, okay, these are my priorities. How can I make sure that those priorities stay intact? Essentially, I decided to not change my career with the intent of probably only shifting to another agency, so another like company to work for within digital media, for maybe a year. Right, just like, okay, let's just like, we'll get a new job, maybe get a little pay raise, right? We'll like promotion, another step on the ladder in my career, and then we'll like have some money, and then we'll reevaluate. Like, okay, we're gonna change the environment, we're gonna change teams, we're gonna change companies, start anew, but also like keep my foundation of like, this is still what I know, right? This is now the industry I've been in for 2.5 years. So
Yeah.
let's just like go with what we know, and then we'll reevaluate from there.
Okay.
And I joined the current agency that I'm at now, and I have never felt like a more valuable human employee.
Yes.
Like part of a team. And it was an amazing feeling to feel so supported. And I think the clarity too is it wasn't only the people that I worked with. I think that's like a big clarity because I loved the people that I worked with at my first agency.
Okay.
Wonderful human beings. Great to work with, but I didn't feel like the agency itself was supportive and was able to provide resources to all of their employees to actually provide support for them from their day-to-day and also from like an overarching managerial like perspective. They just like didn't have those resources available. So now I go to this new agency, I feel like, oh, you want to learn like a different discipline? Like I specialize in paid social media. So your advertisements that are on Instagram, your advertisements on TikTok, Snapchat, yada, yada, yada. It's like, oh, you want to learn about Google advertisements or you want to learn about TV advertisements? Here's some resources. Like, so here's a class you can take.
Much more room to grow and develop more skills and
your teams
out.
weren't understaffed. Like
wow.
I know. Hey,
luxury.
Right. Where like there was actually a push to make sure that all teams are staffed so that people don't experience burnout. And there was just a culture at this new agency where they're like, no, we like to keep top talent here. Like, if you are a great worker and, you're a great part of a team and you're providing an excellent service to both your internal team and your client, we want to keep you around. So, like, we want to make sure you're happy as an employee so that you can keep doing work for us.
What a concept.
I know.
All companies need to be paying attention right now.
Yeah. So, coffee break. And that was a great feeling. And so that has really sustained me at my current job, which I thoroughly love.
So career kind of settled.
Career settled.
You found not only what you like to do, you found a place where you could grow and like develop more as your interests sort of started to span new horizons.
Right.
And you felt supported. So now time to experiment with something else.
Right. So now it's like, okay, I feel like I'm, at where I should be at my career. Maybe even at selling, right? I was able to teach at UCLA, like I was getting accreditations and, compliments and awards at my current agency. And I was like, okay, like this feels comfortable. This feels good. This feels like an area that I can grow in. And so I feel like, okay, check that off.
Nice.
Like that is good. Then the feeling of complacency, what's that word?
Complacency.
Yeah. Complacency was settling in.
Oh, okay.
And I knew it wasn't my career, right? Because I had a positive trajectory there. I felt like I was providing a value and I was really enjoying my job.
Mm-hmm. And getting recognized and growing.
Right. Which is like, okay, yeah, that feels good. Pat on the shoulder.
Yeah.
But what else in my life is making me feel like...
Stale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's then where... the moving conversation kind of enters the chat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Moving has entered the chat.
Right.
All right. Now, there were 2 chapters to this little chat.
Yeah.
So, you went to San Diego for 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
Yeah, around 8 weeks.
Oh, 8 weeks? 2
Yeah.
months?
By the way, I was supposed to go with the ex. That was part of the heartache of 2020, 2021.
Right.
So that was...
Bad times.
Bad timing.
Odd year.
Bad, horrible.
No good.
Odd year. 21.
Amazing place, but still bad vibes because of that whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I had thought even back then, it's like, okay, maybe I don't want to live in New York my entire life, right? Because we grew up on Long Island, I went to school upstate, moved to the city. It's like, I've just kind of like been in this New York bubble my entire life, but
and it's
I love
like a
the sun.
blessing and a curse to be from New York.
Oh, yeah.
It's like where else in the world is there, but also there is a lot.
There is a lot more.
There is to explore, and it's good to get out of your hometown, even if your hometown is in New York.
Yes. And I have the privilege of, having been able to travel throughout my lifetime. So I've had a taste of other cities and cultures and, really just like places throughout the world that you can be
Yeah.
other than New York City.
Right.
Like, oh, what a concept.
Yeah. So you like go searching like for a different vibe, a different shake it up.
Right. But that was back in 2021 where my mental health was not within that window of tolerance. So it's like, okay, how credible was that stay? Right. Like, not great.
Yeah.
But that was even a conversation I was having back then of, do I want to always be on the East Coast? Like, I really don't like, daylight savings and seasonal depression. And,
Horrible.
just, it's really a tough,
If the sun
gray
sets one more
winter
day
in
at
New York.
3:30 p.m., I'm out.
Yeah. You're like, bye. Just
See ya.
leading myself out to the West Coast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the thought process.
So when you went to San Diego, I remember you were talking about like how in life you were trying to do some different experiments and that you rented an Airbnb out there and you just like basically tried living there for
Yeah.
like 2 months.
Yeah.
And just to kind of like, get a sense for how it felt and all that. So
Yeah.
what happened in your evaluation of that?
That's a great question, because I think that was really the start of my life, that I started treating my, quote unquote, big life decisions as an experiment.
Yeah.
And like you and I have talked about this a lot, and
That advice like changed my life.
Yes.
I was like, oh, so I can just like try a new career and it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be my dream career forever?
Right.
Okay.
and that was even part of moving to the other agency. It's like,
Yeah.
if you are not happy, you can make a change.
And it doesn't have to be permanent.
And it doesn't have to be permanent.
It doesn't have to be the right thing either, but
Yeah.
like not every decision that you make has to feel so fucking permanent.
Right. You're literally just experimenting. Your whole life is an experiment until
Yeah.
you find the right concoction.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you do the San Diego experiment, and now how did you evaluate how that went?
That was tough because, one, it was 2020. Oh, no. I'm sorry. 2021. So still like COVID. It was before vaccines were out.
Right. Because
So
I remember when we came to visit you, it was still like we had to get COVID tests, like we had to like
Yes.
quarantine.
Right. Masks were like
Yeah.
readily being worn. So it was a little difficult to kind of understand the culture that was out there, because I think being in heavy, pandemic vibes, the culture of San Diego was probably very different than what it was now.
Yeah.
However, I could still feel and understand the lifestyle of people that were out there. Maybe not like the social aspects when you're like, oh, like a bar or, like things like that. But I could understand that the lifestyle of people that lived out there was much more healthy and active than what I've experienced on Long Island, upstate New York City.
Yeah.
Like there's just a overall notion and focus on wellness, whether
Yes,
it's your
for sure.
emotional, mental, physical, like
Being active, being out in the sun, like
yes.
yeah.
And like
It's all
also
just-
like enjoying your life, not working to live, but working as a part of your life.
yes.
Not
Agreed.
to
It's a nice change of pace when
Yes.
you go out there.
Yeah.
It always takes me a couple days to like decompress before I actually settle into the like, okay,
right. Oh, I can
slow down.
Yeah, I can breathe now.
Yeah, like I'm still like going at New York pace.
Right.
And then the person in the coffee shop is just like the chillest person you've ever met.
They're
And
like,
you're
how's your day going? And they
oh.
mean it.
I'm like, what? What do you want?
Right. Right. Like, stop calling me. Give me my coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like you need to just settle.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you were getting a taste of that vibe and that lifestyle.
Yes.
And I think that part of it was positive for you.
I agree. And I think it did set the stage for, okay, once everything else is in check, like, this is a possibility for you. This is something that you can work with and really, like, grow, right? Get to that next level of, like, growth in my life towards happiness, really.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you're only doing what you know and you don't take those experiments and you don't have those experiences, how are you ever going to know if you can be more happy than you are right now?
Yeah. So true.
You'll never know.
Yeah.
So that was like a little taste of it where I'm like, okay, like there does seem to be more out there that I
Right.
could get from other places to live. Yeah.
Right.
And other communities, other cultures, other lifestyles. So that definitely planted the seed. That was like the first little taste.
Yeah. A little
of
inkling.
Right. Of like not residing in Manhattan anymore, or like even being on the East Coast, just like
Right.
a very different aspect.
So you do that experiment. And then fast forward to, I guess it was probably around this time last year when you came to us with the PowerPoint.
Yes. The PowerPoint.
And that was the 3 different cities that you were considering moving to.
Yes.
And it was like elaborate. It had so it was like San Diego, Denver, and Charleston.
Yep.
And everyone had like a section on like the cost of living, what the vibes are, like how close you could live to the beach, and like things like that.
Pros and cons. Amount of single men in each area.
Yes.
Big one.
Huge factor of the eventual choice to move to Denver.
Yeah.
But so you went through this like very thought out process, I guess, for evaluating.
Yeah, very rational process.
Yeah, a very rational process.
Yeah.
And you decided to move to Denver.
I did. That was the winner.
Talk to us about why.
So ultimately, it came down to culture. One, how I'd fit in with the existing culture and community and the lifestyle of the people that are there.
And you are so Denver vibes.
I am so Denver vibes. Yeah.
So crunchy.
Yeah.
Love
like,
going on hikes.
Yeah, like I wear my Tevas like
Yeah.
350 days out of the year. Like,
The tan lines are intense.
yeah. They are
They're
forever.
great,
And yeah, it's like I have tattooed tan lines of my Tevas on my feet.
You should get a little Teva tattoo on
I
your
really
foot.
should. I feel like I wouldn't buy. Like I want to be Teva. If you're listening, I'd love to sponsor you because, or you sponsor me.
Yeah, Kat is your biggest fan.
Or even like I'll make your user generated content. I will.
Yes.
I'll be a Teva gal. But yeah, so I really thought like I would fit in well with the culture. Denver, everyone's really active and outdoors and adventure-y, and you know, like as much as New York City has a lot of fun aspects about it. It's like on weekends, people are like, oh, you want to go to brunch? But on weekends in Denver, I wake up and I'll get a text like, hey, anyone want to go for a hike today? And that
like,
to me,
yes.
Yeah, and yeah. The answer is, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And I think there's like so many more options for outdoor activities there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like so much more a part of the culture. Whereas in New York City, like there are so many things to do. But when it comes down to it, a lot of what's like on repeat is like drinking and getting food with your friends.
Yes.
And that like is expensive and not that enriching.
Right. It's poison.
Yeah.
So, and I think too, like, also as someone with chronic mental health issues, right? Seasonal depression's a very real thing for me.
Yeah.
And New York is very difficult in the winter for me. It's really like the cold goes straight through to your bones.
Yeah.
It's very cold. It's very gloomy.
Gloomy.
So gloomy and it's just depressing. Like, even if you don't have like
I
chronic
question
mental
my
health
life
issues.
choices every day.
Right. It's like no one likes the winter in New York unless
Yeah.
it's like Christmas time and you're looking at the tree and you're like, all right, I guess today is fine.
Yeah. This one
This
day,
one
for this
moment
5 minutes
is
that I'm
okay.
standing here is okay.
Yeah. So that's really where then Denver and San Diego were taking the lead because one, actually Denver and Colorado are like, they have 360 days of sun a year. Like it's a very
it's like
sunny
the sunniest
state.
place. Like
So even though it's cold, I think it's the top.
Yeah,
one
like
of
the
top.
sunniest city in the U.S. or
Yeah.
something like that.
And even then, it's dry air out there, so the cold isn't just as like frigid.
Yeah, the air doesn't hurt your face as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, it's cold, and you're like, okay,
whatever.
yeah, it's
Keep
fine.
going.
Yeah, but it's still sunny out, so you're like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So culture, climate was like big. Where I'm like, okay, I think my like mental health and physical health and everything would do well. So kind of like San Diego and Denver were really like leading the pack there.
Right.
And
then
men.
men.
Men was a big one. Where San Diego definitely also like there's a lot of like army bases or like naval bases out there, and I was like, okay.
Right.
But I thought that tying into the community aspect of like, okay, if I want to find a life partner who really loves to do the things that I want to do, and if those things are in Denver, then I should move there.
Yeah.
Also,
And, like,
cost of living was big too. San Diego's just as expensive, really, as
It's
Manhattan,
insane.
but you need a car.
Yep.
So
That increases your cost too.
yeah,
I know. I mean, well, I've gone back and forth so many times with moving to San Diego, and it just like it was not affordable at all to buy anything that I would have liked, anything close enough to the beach that would have given me the whole reason I wanted to be there. It just like wasn't going to provide the kind of lifestyle that I was actually seeking.
Yeah.
But like I do love it with all my heart, but it is a costly consideration.
Yeah. And I think like all of these things, like cost of living, like being with a community that you really identify with and can like grow with and feel a part of.
Yeah.
They all really, for me, live under quality of life too.
Yeah.
So I think that when you like boil everything down, it's like, oh, why did you move? It's because I wanted a better quality of life.
Yeah.
And I was getting that. I felt I was getting that from my professional career, right? Like financially, I was like, okay, like I'm doing okay. Like really grateful for my salary and that I can, afford things in general. But it was just, it's hard to feel comfortable, I'll say, in New York City. Whereas in Denver now I can live alone, which for me is a huge increase in quality of life. Like just having my own, just having my own space, you know, being able to operate on my own terms. And that was like a really, really huge increase in quality of life. And even just like the type of living, like area, like apartment that I was in.
Yeah.
Where in Manhattan, like if a truck went by, my entire apartment building would just like shake, and I'm like, all right, this is it. We're going down. We're done. This is it.
Not gonna lie, you had the coolest apartment I've ever seen in New York City. It was like this 1700s building that George Washington literally met with his troops in.
Yes.
But like, it also looked it. You know, like it was,
it was in rough shape.
It was hurting. Yeah. A couple of times on the staircase, I was like, am I gonna step through this and like wind up on the, you know, downstairs floor? Maybe.
Right. Where like maybe there was like some like Sons of Liberty like skeletons,
yeah,
and you're like, oh, you're
in
like the
definitely
crypts.
around there too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh yeah,
but like coolest apartment ever.
Yeah,
and so open,
very Friends-esque.
So Friends-esque.
Yeah,
they could have filmed the sequel
in
your apartment.
Yeah, and it was me.
Right, but your new apartment is amazing, and the location is so prime. It's in a really walkable, like cute part of Denver.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw so much of why you love living there when we went to visit a couple months ago. Everyone there is just so genuinely open to friendship.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, like most people are transplants, right? Like,
yes.
Not many people are actually from Denver, or like they're not from the city.
Yeah.
So it's like a really genuine thing. Whereas in New York, everybody's on their own fucking agenda. Like nobody wants to be your friend.
Right.
Like they're
going
be
bothered.
No.
Yeah.
They're going to hang out with their friends, but like don't disrupt them. You know, don't chat anybody up. It's just like not the same kind of openness and like genuineness towards making new friends.
Yeah.
I feel like I really saw that from the new friends that you've made in Denver, which is like awesome.
I think too is like I tried to make new friends in Manhattan, and I was able to achieve
sports
that.
Leagues, you were like, involved in things,
right? Like I did make new friends, but it was difficult. Like I really had to put in a lot of effort, and
you planned a lot of things. Like you had parties, you invited them over. Like I remember,
I purposefully was trying to build new friendships and relationships.
Yeah. So how do you think that the overall move to Denver has impacted your quality of life? Is it falling within the window of tolerance?
Oh gosh, we are streamlined. Like we are feeling good. I'm really grateful I was able to financially be able to move. I'm really, really grateful that my company allowed me to go remote, because that's a huge thing too, right? Yeah. I'm so fortunate to have maintained my current job, which was a nice thing where it's like, okay, a lot of variables and like things in my life are changing. I'm moving across the country.
Yeah, if you could keep at least one thing steady.
One thing stable. That's good. Was huge. And also like, I love my job. So I was great. Like really like, please, I don't want to leave, but like I need to physically leave, but I don't want to leave my position.
Physically leaving, mentally not leaving.
Yeah. And we've worked it out too, where it's like, I'll be back in New York every 6 to 8 weeks. I feel like I've been back here like 6 times, like 10 months. So which I'm back. I'm present, right? Involved. Yeah. So it's nice to see everyone. And so it's been working, but overall, which is so crazy, like after all my mental health issues, right? I feel like I'm like, okay, we're on this like learning journey. I know myself really well. Now I'm in this like next chapter of my life where once I got to Denver, I'm like, I'm a freshman again. You know, it's like, I'm just like a freshman in this chapter now of my life.
A Denver freshman.
Yeah. And I feel like now I'm, you know, even like, okay, we're going on year 2, sophomore year.
Yeah.
I've even been learning a lot more about myself too. It's like, how do I operate as a human without a physical support system? Yeah. I've had one really great friend in Denver too, who's my college roommate. Shout out Katie. Who's really been like a great help in like transitioning me into the city and being there for me. But, you know, you go from having, you know, how many people were at Halloween last year? 60 plus people in a network.
Yeah.
In the physical place that you're in.
The most epic Halloween parties ever. And like the funny thing is that for the entire next year, anytime that Kat would tell a story about her friends, she would always refer to them by their costume. She'd be like, oh yeah, you know the guy in the spaceship? And you're like, oh yeah, that guy.
I remember him. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, he's getting married. Oh, good.
Cool. Oh, who's he getting married to? Like, oh yeah, the girl, you know,
the moon.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Perfect. Yeah. So happy for them.
Yeah. Oh, they are engaged actually. If you remember the moon.
That's amazing.
Well, that was it was hard, you know, going and being really on my own. You know, learning about myself, how I operate really super independently, and also exploratorily.
Yeah,
exploratorily. Yeah. You know what I mean. Yeah. You know, it's like learning how I operate while also discovering a new place.
Yeah.
And new people, new friendships, like new hobbies of my own, right? It's like, it's like didn't know that I love, like, snowshoeing, you know? It's, like, stuff like that. I was like, oh, cool. Like, this is, like, something new that I can, like, discover and learn and grow in.
Right.
Or even, like,
And
I
climbing.
boulder, rock climbing.
Oh my God, that was so much fun.
Right. I started bouldering and rock climbing, and I'm like, wow, this is healthy and fun? Ah.
When you told us that we were gonna go, I think you said rock climbing, you know, to like put it simply for us New Yorkers. Our other friend and I, we were like, oh, okay, yeah, like that sounds fun.
Yeah, you're being polite. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, so we get to the gym and we're getting through the little intro and they're showing us, you know, okay, use these shoes and this and that. And I'm looking around and I'm like, where are the bungee cords? Like,
where are the ropes that are going to prevent me from falling to my death? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, what? So we're just gonna climb, like, we're just gonna free ball it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I was definitely a little apprehensive, and I did break a couple nails. But I have to tell you, it was one of the most gratifying, fun activities, like, I have done in a long time.
Yeah.
It was, like, instant gratification.
Yes.
Oh my God, it was so much fun.
And you're using muscles that you never use.
Yeah.
So, like, the next day, you're, like, waddling around, like, oh my God, I literally can't move.
Yeah.
But it's so fun. And, like, it's a wonderful community, too, where everyone who goes is really encouraging of, like, other climbers, and you just want to see everyone succeed.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh, I want to be the
I know
best
people were all,
climber
like,
out
cheering
there.
for each other.
Yeah.
It was, like, very communal.
Yes. So, like, I've made friends even through the climbing gym, and so that's been, like, really nice, too.
I feel like one of the major themes that is coming out of this is that the new friends that you're meeting are values-based. Like, it's because you share something in common with them. Like, you've met friends who are at the WeWork, like, hustling away, and then they're like, all right, but it's 4 o'clock, let's go get a drink. Like,
Right.
time to, like, go and decompress. Their lifestyle is now kind of similar to yours in their outlook on work. And you've met the friends at the climbing gym who are just, like, really active, and they value community, meeting new people, and trying new things, and, like, pushing themselves. Whereas it's not that you can't meet those kinds of people in New York, but I don't think that there's as many built-in activities that, like, show you what other people's values are.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely, like, values-based hobbies, but, like, going to the Met, for example, kind of a solo activity. You're not, like, walking up to strangers there and being like, hi, would you like to
Like, do you want to be
coffee?
friends?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing about Denver. You've really been able to find those, like, values-based activities to show you the people who you belong with.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
and
nice.
and that's like trickling back into my professional life where I'm like, say I go to the climbing gym, you can like work from there. I'm with my friends. And if they're like, one told me recently, he was like, yeah, whenever you say anything and I can tell you're stressed, I just immediately change the subject to like distract from like you being stressed. I'm like you are so kind. Like,
yeah, like
thank
stress
you.
culture in New York would never.
Oh no, they'd be like, yeah, fuel the fire. Like,
yeah, pour it
down
on.
the establishment.
Yeah.
But then, like, in like Denver,
Right.
they're like, oh, let's just like not be stressed and like just enjoy life. And I'm like, oh,
Sorry,
beautiful.
what?
Yeah.
Unfamiliar with that approach.
Yeah, right. Quality of life. Check.
Yeah, that's
So,
amazing. I'm so happy that, I mean, I've seen you thriving, but just like having this conversation and hearing more about how it's affected your overall well-being and your mental health, and it just seems like it was the right choice for you, at least for now. You
Yeah,
know,
for
like,
now,
it doesn't
right.
have to be forever.
I'm
but,
still in
like,
the experiment. We're
yeah.
still in the experiment stage, right?
Experiment is ongoing.
Yeah, forever ongoing.
Yeah.
So who knows, how I'll feel when my lease is up, who knows how I'll feel in 2 years, I'm single now, but like maybe I meet someone in a year or 2, or, maybe I travel for 2 years and then I like to have another experiment and try out like other areas because, now I'm fully remote. So it's like I can do this from anywhere.
Yeah, there's so many like good things that could be on the horizon.
Yeah.
And I love that you have that experimentation mindset where it really opens you up to trying new things and new experiences. Nothing has to feel like it's set in stone.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's one of the biggest takeaways from this interview conversation catch up that we just had is like, just try something. Try something that you think is going to affect your overall mental health and your quality of life for the better.
Right.
And if you don't like it, like most things in life are reversible, I would say. Probably not like having kids, like maybe think that was true. But like most other things in life are pretty, changeable.
Yeah. Experiment.
Yeah. I love it.
Just test it out. See how you like it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an amazing way to close out. Thank you so much.
Than's for having me.
Oh my gosh,
I love
this has been
this.
such a fun. This has been
It's
such
so
a fun.
fun.
Chat.
On a pink couch and everything. You got the whole setup. I love it.
I know we got the vibes in here, right?
Yeah.
This has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you had as much fun as we did. If you enjoyed this episode, please send the link to a friend who maybe is going through their quintessential quarter life crisis. And if you want to help me out so that the podcast can get discovered by other young women going through their personal and professional awakenings, please give the podcast a 5-star review wherever you're listening. It really helps the algorithm to share the podcast with the right people. That's all for now. See you in the next one.